So welcome everyone. It's really nice to have you today for our very first training session. We met in the previous orientation session, but this would be the very first open science training session. And yeah, we're really happy to see all of you here, and we hope that you enjoy this session. So this session will be facilitated by me and Emmanuel. Sorry, you will be seeing us a lot, but we will be delivering this session. Then starting from the next session, you will get to meet all the wonderful trainers that we have. So let me share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see. Yes.
Yes, we can see.
Great, great. And I would really appreciate if everyone muted their mics so that we could all listen well to the session. Thank you. Okay, so as I said, today is our introduction to open science. It's our very first session in the local network leads training program. And again, we're very thankful for ORFG and our trainers for basically making this training possible. And I would like again to remind all of us about the code of conduct that we would like all to abide by during this training, which is to embrace our diversity, to promote constructive communication and foster collaboration and sharing, and maintain professionalism in disagreement. And in case anyone had an issue with any of the other trainees with a violation of the code of conduct, you can contact us via our email, or you can use the incident report form, which is already present in your Google Drive. You'll find it there. So for the outlines of this session, we will talk about what is open science in the first place, why does it matter, and why is it becoming really important nowadays, and what are the barriers and challenges that sort of prevent the implementation of open science, and how we can overcome these challenges. And then we will talk about the landscape of open science, both globally and in Africa. And then we will have a breakout session where you'll be able to interact and brainstorm together about open science in action. So first of all, what is open science? If you remember, if you filled the pre-training survey, and I hope all of you did, and all of those who didn't, please fill it out because it will close soon. So we asked you what best describes your general understanding of open science, and these were your responses. So the majority, so 85% of you agreed that open science is the practice of making research outputs, including publications, data, and methodologies, freely accessible and usable by others. And then we have about 10% of you who said that open science primarily concerns making all scientific research available for free to the general public. And actually, you were spot on, because both of these descriptions or understandings actually explain what open science is. So if we would like to take a more broad definition of open science, then open science is the practice of making scientific research, data, and dissemination accessible to the public, policymaker, practitioners, or professionals. So open science is all about accessibility to scientific materials. And this accessibility is not restricted to the scientific community, but it extends to the public, to policymakers, to the practitioners and professionals that are involved in the outputs of this scientific research. So open science encourages transparency, reproducibility, and broad collaboration in the research process. So these are the main, you can see the main three things that open science revolve around is making scientific research transparent, reproducible, and to enhance the ability for collaboration. So we can say that open science is about removing barriers to knowledge and making science a public good. So this is very important. The whole idea of open science is no one should have limited access to scientific research. They should be able to access it whenever they want, however they want, because science is a public good and it's not restricted to a certain category of people. So you might wonder what were the drivers that sort of pushed to the shift towards open science. And I think most of us experienced these drivers, but like we'll try to pin them down into certain points. And there were so many drivers that shifted towards open science, but we will mention 4 of the very most important drivers. And the first one was the reproducibility crisis. And this was the concern that many scientific outputs are not replicable. So we cannot regenerate the same results using the same data. So this was a big problem. And of course, it affected the trust in scientific research. And it also affected the allocation of resources and the formulation of policies. So this was one of the major drivers towards open science, the reproducibility crisis. Then we had difficult accessibility to scientific literature. And I think all of us in Africa really suffer from this because scientific literature is usually behind really ridiculously high paywalls. And all publishing was subscription-based, and it was mainly feeding to the profit of the publishers, not the scientists and not the public, because they were not able to easily access these publications. Then we have the bias in scholarly review and publication. And this was evident by the great increase in biases and lack of transparency when it comes to peer review. So you find that if a paper has a certain name on it, then it's automatically published. If a certain comes from a specific country or a specific region, then it's automatically questionable and maybe not published. So this was a really big issue that affected the innovation and research because it sort of hindered the good science to be available and actually maybe pushed some junk science to be available. Finally, there was a significant lack in collaboration and interdisciplinary research. And basically, researchers were working in silos, in isolated islands. We have this team competing with this team, and they're not sharing information with each other. They're not exchanging their findings with each other. And this was even extended to geographical boundaries. So researchers in a certain country work together and they don't want to collaborate with other countries. And this, of course, greatly limited the exchange of ideas and methodologies, and which is very important. This collaboration is very important to solve complex global challenges. So we can find many teams working on the same issue, while if they joined forces, they would have came with much more better results and much more better innovations. So these were the main sort of drivers that made people think, oh, we have to think about open science. So would like to give you a small poll now. It's a Zoom poll. So let's see which of these, because we talked about four sort of drivers that shifted towards open science. So we'd like to see whether you personally experienced some of these issues or not. So Emmanuel, if you could put the poll. Yeah, so select any of the following issues you have personally experienced. Whether it's reproducibility, reproducing a study, have you encountered difficulties reproducing a study, assessing scientific materials, and peer review processes? Okay, you have people answering.
Please note that you can select multiple choices for this poll. So select any of the choices you think applies to you. Yeah. Okay, so we are going to end the poll in about 10 seconds. So if you haven't answered, please answer.
Okay, so I think we have everyone, right?
Just level one person. So I think,
Okay,
yeah, I think
good.
everyone has participated. That's great to see. Yeah, I'm ending the
Okay,
poll now.
okay, great.
I've started sharing the results, Lamis.
Okay, yeah, share the results, please. Should I stop sharing my screen? So as you can see, I think almost the majority has faced an issue with accessing scientific material. And yes, indeed, we all have, especially in Africa. Then we have almost 50% had an issue with reproducing a study. And we also have 71% who had issue finding collaborators. And maybe the least percentage had problems with the peer review process. So actually this actually indicate that we are all in common in the issues that we're facing. So this is very good. Thank you for that. Okay, I'll stop sharing now. So we'll continue. So then came the idea of how to address these key challenges that we just said, and how to introduce open science practices. So from here came the idea that we need to have a transformative approach. So open science was a transformative approach that addressed several critical issues facing the scientific community today. And open science was able to do that by fostering a collective agreement on employing certain values, principles, and pillars. So all of the people who are practicing, the community that's practicing open science, they agreed on certain values, principles, and pillars that they would abide by. And then these values, principles, and pillars sort of interact together or work together in order to create a framework for community and collaboration. To understand these values, principles, and pillars more, we can look at open science as a building. And if we look at this building, the base of the building is actually composed of the open science values, which are the ethical and moral beliefs that underpins the open science movement. Also, in the basement of this building, we have the open science principles, and these are the guidelines that motivate the adoption of open science practices. And then we have the pillars that sort of hold this building or make this building. And these open science pillars are actually the fundamental components and categories that structure the open science framework. And finally, we have our roof. And this roof actually is the community and collaboration that foster the adoption of open science. So the creation of a collaborative and inclusive scientific community that nourishes and supports the growth of open science. So as you can see, each of these components sort of depend on the other. So without the foundation, we would not be able to have the pillars, and without the pillars, we would not be able to have the roof. So I hope that this sort of gave you an understanding about these different factors that goes into open science. So now we'll talk a bit about each of these open science elements. So we'll start with the open science values. And these are equity, integrity, and collective benefit. So these are the values that sort of implement open science. And in equity, we have meaning that we ensure equal access to scientific knowledge and opportunities for contribution. And by integrity, we mean upholding high standards of honesty and transparency in conducting and reporting research. And then finally, we have the collective benefit, which is viewing knowledge as a collective asset that should benefit society as a whole. And these, like, if you go and search about open science values, you will find that there's so many, but I try to summarize them into these three main or most important values that we need to have in order to practice open science. Then we have the open science principles, and these are transparency, accessibility, reproducibility, collaboration, and inclusivity. So by transparency, we mean that making the research process openly available at all stages. So since the very start of the process until the end, it should be transparent. Then we have accessibility. And by accessibility, we mean ensuring that scientific outputs are accessible to all and removing all barriers, whether they are financial, technical, or legal. Then we have reproducibility. And by that, we mean we facilitate the verification of results through shared data and methodologies. Then we have collaborations, which is encouraging cooperative work across disciplines and geographical boundaries. And finally, inclusivity, which means promoting diversity and participation in science by all sectors of society. So inclusivity mainly means that we should think about those who are often neglected or marginalized. For example, we have maybe early career researchers, we have certain demographics that are usually neglected within the research community. So we have to make sure that all of these people are included in research. And then finally, we have the pillars of open science. And actually the pillars of open science are so many, but they could be sort of categorized into open knowledge dissemination, open research processes, open tools and infrastructure, and community engagement and collaboration. So these are sort of the broad 4 categories of the open science pillars, but then within each category, we find more subcategories. For example, in open knowledge dissemination, we have preprints, which you're going to learn more about as we go in this training program. And preprints are simply complete manuscripts that are still not published in peer review papers, but they are publicly available. And we have open access, which is, of course, most of you know about, which is making research publication freely available. And we will also learn about that in our training programs, because there are many different types of open access. Also, we have open educational resources, which means making educational content freely available for anyone to access. Then we have the open research processes, and these involve open data, which is sharing raw data for transparency and reusability. We have open methodologies in which the protocols that are used in the study are openly available for everyone to use and revise. Then we have also open notebooks, because we know that during research, we all have logbooks. And usually these logbooks have so many important details that are not usually mentioned in the methodology. So open science is also moving towards making these notebooks available for the public. And of course, we have open peer review, which enhances the transparency of the reviewing process. So fortunately, we'll not be able to go through all of them in this training program, but we will go through the open data and the open peer review. And then we have the open tools and infrastructure, and these include open source, which is promoting the use of open source software. So making softwares that can do analysis or can do certain tasks openly available for everyone. And one very famous example is R, the statistical program that is open and available for everyone to use, and for everyone to sort of deposit their methodologies on for others to use. Then we have open hardware. So it's not just about software, it's even about hardware, whether it's making the hardware itself freely available for anyone who wants to use it, or maybe even detailing the process of how this hardware was produced and make it available to the public if they want to make it on their own. We also have open infrastructure, and these are basically the platforms and tools and services that are important for conducting and disseminating open science. And again, unfortunately, we'll not be able to go through all of them, but we'll mainly focus on open source. Finally, we have the community engagement and collaboration. And the very important subcategory of this is citizen science. I'm not sure if all of you heard of it, but it's gaining high popularity. Is because you're doing research to help the community, and usually need data from the community or the population. So it's very important to sort of keep the community that you're making the study on informed, fully informed about the study, and then giving back the results of these studies to them. And then we have open educational practices, and this mainly encourages the teaching of open science and openness in instructional design and execution. So, and finally, we have open advocacy, and this is for example, what organizations like AREN are trying to do, which is promoting the values and benefits of open science within the scientific community and hopefully even to the wider public. So by that, I come to the end of this section of our presentation. So I'd like to encourage anyone who have questions to go ahead and ask. I hope I wasn't talking too fast.
No, it was fairly okay, Lamis.
Thank you. So if anyone has a question, please feel free to raise your hand and then unmute. Or if you're not comfortable in unmuting, you can just write your question in the chat. Okay, I think we have one question. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Thomas. What is instructional design? Okay, so we said that instructional design, meaning that, for example, if someone wants to teach open science, then they should also have the steps needed to deliver this open science knowledge available. So basically, this is what we're trying to do at AREN, is we are giving you the knowledge and we're equipping you with all the tools and making all the tools that we can provide available for you to be able to move forward and disseminate this knowledge to your community. I hope that this answers the question. Okay, we have another question from Musa. If everything is open, who will cover the cost that it incurred? Well, this is also part of open science and it's gaining momentum, is funding. Like many funders are actually making it an obligation for the projects that they are funding, that they are like everything in the project is openly available from scratch. So actually funders that usually fund scientific research, because even if we don't want to do open research and we want to conduct research, we have to secure funding. So actually many of the major funders are promoting open science, and not just promoting it, they're making it a requirement. And they could like penalize the projects that they're funding if they're not making all the data and all the methodologies and the results that they are producing openly available. I hope that answers your question, Musa. Does openness really means free? Yes, free accessibility. It means mainly accessibility, not just cost, because accessibility could be that, for example, technically, if we're talking about citizen science, for example, if you're trying to deliver a results of the study to the public, and you make it and you just talk in the same language that you will talk to experts in the scientific matter, then this would be a problem, because the public will not be able to access and understand these findings. So if you but by openness, we mean that, for example, in this case, in citizen science, is that you make this scientific output understandable and accessible for the public. So it's free from barriers, and these barriers, whether they be technical, whether they be financial, whether they be geographical. That's the idea of openness. I hope that I answered your question, Daniel. Okay.
Yeah.
Modeste. Okay. Yeah, Emmanuel, please.
Lamis, I think it is also important to note that some of these questions will also be addressed in the subsequent slides. We'll talk about the challenges and benefits. So I'm sure they'll come up and we may be able to talk more about them. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Then we have Joseph asking about, first there is Modester. Please excuse me if I pronounce the names wrong. Bear with me. I'm sure I'll know the right pronunciation as we go.
You're correct.
Okay, thank you. Inclusivity as one of the open science principle. Well, inclusivity means that no one is left behind, whether during conducting the research, we often find, for example, early career researchers or TAs in universities, if we talk about the university setting, they're sort of left behind in the research process. They're not encouraged to, they're not welcomed or encouraged to join research teams. They sort of have to fight their way to be included in these research teams. And we could also talk about it from the public perspective. As I said, that we take the information from the public, but then we do our research, we do our publication, but then we don't provide, we don't include the public in the interpretation of these results, or not even in the design of the study. It's very important now to, if you're targeting a specific population, then it's very important to include people from this population, because they will give you insights that maybe you're not familiar with. So I hope that this answers your question, Modester.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Finally, we have Joseph, and in the definition of open science, you have given there is an aspect of free access to the document without financial charge and technology barriers. Can you explain? Yeah, it's simply, for example, many times if you want to have access to a certain publication, you usually have to pay a big amount of money. Or if you're lucky, then your institution usually have subscription to these journals or these publishers, which allow people working in this institution to have access to these publications. So this was one of the major actually drivers towards open science, is not everyone, I think especially for us in Africa, we cannot afford to pay such ridiculously high fees to get access to knowledge. This is why open access has become more and more popular, in which the results of the or the publication is freely available for everyone to download and use. I hope that this explained your question, Joseph.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay. Does it also mean that researchers will not have to pay to have their work published too? Well, here is another issue. Is in open access, usually the researchers have to pay for the publisher fees so they're called publication processing fees, and it's usually much. And actually, this is why when people apply for funding, they actually allocate a part of this funding to publishing open access, because it is expensive. But then one other thing that sort of is trying to solve this issue, because it's also a barrier, even though it's good for people who want to use the information, but it might be difficult for people who cannot pay to publish open access, is preprints, which you're going to learn more about, which are servers in which you can deposit your publication free of charge while you're submitting it to journals for it to be accepted. So we'll definitely learn more about preprints in the upcoming sessions. So Yvonne, I hope I answered your question. Okay. Is there any more questions? Okay, if not, then I think we could have a small break for 10 minutes. So I would encourage everyone to stretch out, relax, and refresh for 10 minutes, and then we'll be back to continue our session today. And if you have questions, you're free to stay, and we'll be happy to answer everyone. So see you in 10 minutes.
Thank you very much for joining us once again. It was a short break, but we hope it helped you to refresh. So I'm going to take over the next few sections, and I'm going to take you through some of the benefits, challenges, and barriers, and then we're going to look at the open science landscape globally and then in Africa too. A lot of benefits exist in open science. I think from the earlier presentation, you realize that the movement is trying to ensure that things are made more open, more accessible, and then there are benefits that can come out of these things. And the first one is that it improves research efficiency. The whole idea of open science involves reducing cost and then increasing access. I think questions came up about whether researchers don't have to pay for everything, for anything in terms of whether they publish their research or not. Currently, even with publishers that are
Emmanuel, I think you're breaking up.
And what happens is that the burden is either on the researcher or the institution. But this is looking at
Emmanuel?
Yeah, is it better now?
Yeah, I think it's good, yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate. So I'm going to start over again. So like I was saying, there are a lot of benefits to open science, and the first one is that improves research efficiency. So open science helps to increase access. That means researchers can be able to access research that is being made public. And what this does is that it reduces duplication of efforts, right? If you are not aware of research that has been done, there is a likelihood that your innovative research or new research will be something that has already been done. But if you have access to research that has already been done, that means you prevent yourself from duplicating efforts. And then it also seeks to reduce cost. I mean, currently, although open access publishing models exist, there are still huge costs that come with that. And this burden falls on institutions and researchers. But with the reduction of cost or elimination of cost and paywalls, what this does is that money that could have been used to pay for publishing can be invested in research, ensuring that more researchers are able to do the research that they want to do. The second benefit is that it improves research quality. So aspects of open science are also looking at increasing transparency and then reproducibility. What this does is that if you know your research, including your methodology, your data is going to be transparent, then there is the likelihood that when you are conducting your research, you are going to do it very well. And you will also not manipulate the data or tamper with the data they are going to present, because someone else could verify whether the results you presented are actually accurate. So what this does is that the research that is published is of high quality, and it allows for further innovation. And as I said, it also increases accelerated discovery and innovation in the sense that if I'm aware of the work that someone has been done and I go through the research work, it can kind of lead me into new ideas that I can either research on or use in product development. The scientific world is not only made up of researchers. We have industries, we have professionals within the biotech and etc. that are developing products. When information is freely available, that means it can feed into their technology or product development process, and this can help in solving societal issues, because research is supposed to be for the public good, like Lames was saying. So open science also helps to increase discovery and innovation. And the final benefit we are going to talk about is the collaboration and participation. Although collaboration and participation exist globally, there are still barriers. Like we earlier stated, there are people or groups that are marginalized, regions, and disciplines that are kind of overlooked when it comes to global collaboration and participation. But what open science seeks is to remove these barriers. When we have people from different regions coming together, it kind of helps to ensure that the solutions that science is presenting are solutions that kind of help on a global scale, not restricted to a specific region or discipline. And then ensuring that people from marginalized areas are also factored into these things ensures that there is inclusivity in the scientific process. So collectively, these are the benefits that open science gives. Of course, there are a lot of them, but we grouped them into these ones to make it simpler. But then, of course, despite the benefits, there are challenges. And I think some of the questions that came up after the first session mentioned some of them. A lot of barriers and challenges exist. And before we started the training section, we let you do a post training survey. And what this was to do is that we asked you a number of questions about the barriers and challenges that researchers may face within their communities or within their research careers or processes. And you selected some answers that you felt you could relate to. And these were the results that we had. So the majority of our trainees said that a big issue in terms of why open science is not something that is commonly practiced in their communities or within Africa or globally is a lack of awareness and training. This is true. If you don't know something, you can do it. If you are unaware of a movement, you can contribute to it. So it's a major issue. And that is one of the reasons why Aaron is currently doing this, to ensure that researchers in various parts of Africa, including underrepresented regions, are aware of the open science movement, and not just are aware of the open science movement, they're also given the required training and resources to ensure they integrate it into their research workflows, and also help others to also be able to integrate it in their research workflows. So that was a major issue. The second one was the lack of open science communities or networks, and this is also very, very important. Researchers are influenced by the norms within their communities or institutions. So if I'm from an institution that doesn't practice open science, then the likelihood that I will not practice it because it doesn't really affect me in any way, not in terms of funding, not in terms of prestige. So I will not be compelled to practice it. But when there are local or regional communities which make the practice normal, which promote or advocate for the practices, it increases awareness and ensures that other researchers are also encouraged to practice it. So that was a third point. And then the other point was that there are not enough policies or support from funding agents. This is true. If an institution doesn't have an open science policy, or if a publisher doesn't have an open science policy, then I may not be compelled to share my data openly, or I may not be compelled to share my source code openly. But if the publisher or the institution has an open science policy, then it will make me share my data and then source code and everything related to my research openly. And even if policies exist too, implementation is very difficult. If an institution wants to implement an open science policy that has to do with establishing a repository, it requires a lot of money to ensure that the services in terms of the infrastructure and the personnel are supported. And if the money is not there, it will be difficult. So if funding agencies are not pushing money into supporting institutions to implement open science, so that's a huge hindrance to ensuring that it becomes a normal practice or a common practice. The other one was a lack of infrastructure or tools. The economic constraints that are limiting access to open science platform. This is very true. Like the open access publishing that still requires payment for your article to be published openly, which like Lame said, have ridiculous sums of money and costing institutions a lot of money that could have been pushed into research. And then the lack of infrastructure or tools. If I want to publish my article as a preprint and there is no preprint server, I can't do it. So if the infrastructure is not there, it is almost impossible to practice open science. So that is also a point that was noted. And then there was concern about intellectual property or competition. A lot of researchers are concerned that when they share their data openly or they share their research as preprints and etc., there could be possibility of scooping. Someone could scoop my research on a preprint server and then quickly go and publish it. I mean, what are the rules around these things? And whilst I'm publishing my research as preprints and etc., my peers are publishing them in high impact journals, and this is contributing to their portfolios and then encouraging them and then increasing the possibility that they will be promoted. So if this competition exists, why should I publish on a repository or on a preprint server? So these are all questions that come up, and it is true, there are challenges that exist. And then, like I was saying earlier, institutional cultural resistance is a major factor. If it is not a norm, then I won't do it. But if everyone at the institution is doing it, then I'll be compelled to do it, right? So that is also a major factor that is preventing that. And then access to internet or electricity. A lot of the open science platforms are online. In fact, this training is being done online. That means every trainee that doesn't have access to internet or electricity can't join this training right now, which is a huge hindrance too. So that is one of the issues that exist within accessibility to open science. And then we have legal and ethical issues. There are concerns around what can I share ethical concerns, what can I share? If I'm having humans information are restricted to the funder, can I openly share everything? So there are issues around legal and ethical concerns. And the final one was language barriers. This training is being done in English. All the slides are done in English, but not all of us are native English speakers. So that means there is the need to translate some of the materials and platforms into languages that are more accessible by individuals or regions that do not speak English. So this is also an issue that was selected by a majority of it. So it was the last one. And then what has been happening over the past few years is that the open science community has been moving in a way to kind of address and overcome some of these challenges. And there have been a few methods that have been developed or postulated that are currently going on and being advocated by individuals, groups, and then several communities. One of them is promoting awareness, like is doing right now.
Emmanuel, you're breaking up
Organize
again.
training and workshop operate open science. Yeah. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
One
I'm
of the
having this, right? You were
challenges in
saying,
Africa, I guess.
yeah, right. One of the issues in Africa. So that is exactly what we are trying to work on. Yeah, so like I was saying, when we incorporate training and workshops into what we do as communities, is going to make researchers aware of what is going on in open science and also providing the tools and resources that they can use. And then each period, we have a new generation of scientists coming up. We have students currently in undergrad, we have students in postgrad. So if we incorporate open science in curricula, it ensures that the newer generation of researchers that are coming up are already aware of these practices, and then they'll be incorporating them into their research workflows. The second one is establish and strengthen networks like ARIN, like other communities. This is very important because what it does is that it helps in sharing resources and ideas. When you have local open science groups, when you have regional consortia, they help strengthen advocacy efforts. They help engage in discussions with other stakeholders and etc. So these consortia are very, very important. And then it is also important to not restrict activities to your local region or your community. Open science is a global movement. So there is the need to also partner with international networks. AREN is part of the global AREN network with a lot of other networks across the world. And we have one in North America, South America, Australia, Canada. We have a lot across Europe and in the UK. So it is an important aspect of promoting or fostering collaboration and passion within open science, overcoming that challenge. When you are part of an international community, you are able to leverage on their experiences and resources, and then you are able to kind of use that rather than reinvent the wheel. You can use what they have done and adapt it to your local needs. So that's what AREN is doing right now. And there's also the need to link what is going on within your community with global OS events, like let's say the world decides that every first Friday of December is the Open Science Day. Then you take advantage of this and get involved. You make awareness of this. You share it within your community to ensure that they are aware that what you are doing is not something that you are doing alone, but is a global movement. It's very important. And there is the need to engage stakeholders like publishers, funders, because they contribute immensely to how the research process is done. So that is also something important. And then number 4 is investing in infrastructure and technical support. If we don't have the platforms, if we don't have the tools, if we don't have the resources, it will be difficult to practice this. If we don't have people that are training researchers, that are providing support when there are technical issues in using some of these platforms, then it will create a block, right, in the process of adopting these principles. So it is important to invest in open infrastructure and then to standardize how certain practices are done within the open science landscape. Then it is also important to establish financial models and policies. The current open access publishing landscape still requires a lot of money to be paid by institutions and researchers, which is not sustainable. So the idea of repositories, the idea of preprints, the idea of policies that factor in some of these platforms is quite important to ensure there is global and holistic adoption. If a funder says, if your article is a preprint, I will accept it when you're applying for funding. You can include it in your funding application. That will encourage a lot of researchers to publish preprints, right? If that is not the case, there is no policy like that, then researchers will not be encouraged to publish their papers as preprints. So establishing these models and policies also encourage researchers to adopt open science policies and also encourage institutions to integrate this into their communities. And then open science also comes with a lot of issues, right? It's not every aspect of research that you can really share openly. And even if you want to share that aspect openly, there are certain concerns around ethics and legal frameworks. If I share my work to you openly, how are the guidelines concerning the use of my work or the reuse of my work or the resharing of my work like? Is it because I shared it openly, anyone can use it anyhow or at anywhere? So there are concerns around that. So there is the need to create this legal and ethical frameworks like how open science resources are licensed to ensure that researchers' concerns around how their work is used and reshared and shared are kind of addressed. And then there's also the need to develop guidelines and tools on how researchers can navigate ethical issues. If you are conducting a research involving humans, then it means there are data that you would take that are sensitive that shouldn't be available to the public. So if I'm required to share my research openly, what are the guidelines on how I'm going to search out research data openly? So there is the need to create this legal and ethical frameworks to guide researchers so that they can know how best to adopt this principle and integrate them into your research workflow. And there is the need for cultural change, right? Our trainees and other members of our community are all OS champions. They are all advocates of open science, but are their institutions are aware? Are their communities aware? The likelihood is that no, many of us here, our institutions are not aware of what we are doing. So there is the need for institutions, there is the need for publishers, the need for finance to identify and support OS champions and their activities. There is the need for them to highlight their success stories and their experiences, what they've gone through and how they've been able to come out. And there's the need to change how researchers are assessed. Currently, it's based on how the number of research you are published and other metrics. But what if, in terms of promotion and funding decisions, institutions and funders consider advocacy in terms of open science? What communities are you engaged in? What contributions have you done to open science? If we redefine how academic access is seen, it would also encourage a lot of researchers to kind of adopt open science. If not, I mean, they will stick to the old ways of doing things. And doing this will also ensure that people that engage in open science practice, like our trainees, like our community members, are rewarded for their efforts, because it's not easy to be engaged in open science in terms of advocating and then providing training and resources. So there has to be reward measures in place to ensure people are encouraged. And then lastly, we need to also promote inclusivity and equity. This is one of the major issues that exist. When you look at our community, you realize that majority are coming from the health, biological, and natural sciences. This is something that is common across many open science communities, but that needs to change. We need to look at other underrepresented groups or disciplines. And then we also need to look at countries or regions or institutions that don't have a lot of people within our communities. This is an aspect of open science that is quite important. If we want holistic cultural change, we need to ensure that everyone is involved, like it was stated earlier. So it's important to ensure that the resources that are developed to are translated into other languages, so that these people that are in underrepresented groups can also access them and understand them and also join the movement or contribute to the movement. Now, a lot has been happening globally since open science started. And what has been happening is that this landscape is characterized by a rapidly evolving framework of policies, initiatives, and technologies that have been designed to make scientific research more accessible, transparent, and collaborative. And what has been going on in the landscape is that we have a lot of people and stakeholders contributing to it, including governments, including funding agencies, including research institutions, including libraries, publishers, and the research community at large. So these various stakeholders have kind of come together to ensure that the challenges in open science, the benefits in open science are all addressed or fully experienced by researchers. Because if we don't have some of these here, it will be very difficult to kind of be able to establish and implement open science policies, adopt them into our research workflows. So in terms of policies, I think one of the most recognized framework that has been established, the UNESCO recommendation of open science, which I'm sure a lot of us are aware of. So I think it was adopted in 2021. And since its adoption, 11 countries have introduced open science policies, strategies, and legislative frameworks. And about 193 countries have agreed to abide by common standards. So this is something that countries are gradually becoming aware of and trying to engage in, right? Over 192 countries in the world have agreed to abide by these common standards. And then according to the European University Association, 54% of institutions in Europe have an open science policy, which is quite a high number. That is more than half. And then 37 are developing one one right now, according to UAE. So this also shows how the world is moving towards a more open and reproducible community or ecosystem. We are sure that there will come a time where a lot of institutions globally will have open science policies, and these policies make sure that researchers that are required is no longer an option, it becomes a requirement for you to practice open science policies. In the next few years, it would also happen in Africa. So we are hoping that with trainings like this, we'll be able to encourage everyone to adopt these principles. And then publishers have also been based on high impact factor and index factors and etc. But the Center for Open Science TOP factor is providing alternative metrics to assess the quality of journals based on steps that they are taking to implement open science practices. So some of the features or standards that the TOP factor is looking at is how they encourage replication, open sharing of data, and then design and analysis processes that the journal is trying to implement or require. And we have over 5,000 journals signing globally to say they want to adopt the TOP factor or go by the policies and frameworks that the factor has established. That means that there is a likelihood that very soon a lot of the journals, the popular journals that you know when you publish your research in, would also be looking at how they can integrate open science into their policies, because this factor is becoming globally important. And then lastly, a lot of funders globally have also established open access mandates, and the mandates ensure that the research that is done or the work or the resources that are developed from every funding are shared openly. And when researchers fail, the funders include NIH and the European Research Council, they are all pushing for open access mandates. And when you check a lot of publishers, you realize that when you check the funding area, they have these guidelines talking about the fact that funders require you to publish your research in open access. So this is the information you need to know on how you can publish your paper as open access. This is very important. If you don't know and you publish your paper and it doesn't go by their guidelines, there could be penalties like withholding of payment. So it's important that you know. And this is something that is going on globally. And I think 2023, NASA declared the year as the year of open science, which was quite interesting. They brought a lot of stakeholders together to talk about open science and then how it can help in increasing accessibility to data, collaboration among disciplines, and transparent research processes. This year too, they partnered with the Center for Open Science to culminate the year of open science. So the COS and NASA organized a community event, I think it was organized last month, where all other stakeholders came together to talk about open science. These are global movements that are happening, that are pushing and making a lot of researchers are aware of open science and ensuring that it is no longer something that is a mere movement, but it's gradually becoming a required global standard. So we are going to talk about the communities that have been going on and have been set up within the open science global landscape. And the first one is the reproducible networks, which Aaron is part of. And then we have the eLife community ambassadors, which Lames and I are also part of. We are all ambassadors of the eLife community, and these are all international communities that kind of ensure that anyone can join. It doesn't matter where you are coming from. You can join any of these communities. The community for Rego is established in the US, but it's an open community that you can join. And then the COS ambassadors, which is established by the project that I worked on, was with the Center for Open Science. So these are all platforms or communities that you can join and get the chance to interact with other researchers from various parts of the world that are interested in open science, that are contributing to open science, that are sharing best research practices, that are talking about the challenges they are facing and how they can kind of collaboratively solve these challenges. And one interesting aspect of these communities is that they are felt in developing a lot of resources that are free to use. Some of them are tools and platforms that you can use to integrate open science to your research workflow, and some of them are toolkits that are freely available. So we'd encourage you to join any of these communities if you are not part of them. It's good to have access to a lot of different open science communities, because there are a lot of different activities that are going on there, and you'll be able to learn a lot and then interact with a lot of people. Then we're also going to talk about the resources and toolkits that have been developed. I mean, they are a lot. We can't talk about them. This slide is not exhaustive, but we can talk about the open educational resources commons, where you can find a lot of materials on how to develop your resources, on a lot of materials on reproducible research, a lot of materials on open science, a lot of materials on various disciplines, even including the sciences, the social science. So it's a platform where anyone can just share their materials. It could be lecture slides, it could be books, it could be presentations, it could be anything. So OER is just a platform to share a lot of resources. I would really encourage everyone to check the Open Educational Research Commons. It's a wonderful
Emmanuel,
resource.
sorry to
data.
disrupt you, but someone is asking that you speak a bit slower because many of us are non-native speaker.
Okay. That's
Okay.
that's totally okay. I'm gonna slow down a bit. So, and then we can talk about Dora and Quora. I think what Dora and Quora are trying to do is they are trying to improve how research assessment is done. Like we were saying, currently research assessment does not consider alternative metrics. So Dora and Quora are trying to ensure that there are other alternative metrics that do not necessarily talk about the number of publications, but let's say how the publications have been used in policies are considered. And then we have a platform like Force that has a lot of resources on reproducible research. And then OSF, the Open Science Framework, which is a platform where you can integrate every stage of your research process, from the ideation to finally publishing it. There's a platform that you can integrate everything. So these are all resources and toolkits that are freely available. You don't have to pay anything to get access to these platforms. So we encourage you to visit them. We've included the links to all of these platforms to encourage you to visit them and then know what they are doing. Yeah. So now we are going to look at the African open science landscape. A lot has been going on in Africa, and a lot of initiatives have been established that are also helping promote accessibility, transparency, and collaboration in scientific research. And although there are unique challenges, it also ensures that there are dynamic opportunities that are there. And the idea is to bring together all voices to explore how we can kind of solve these unique challenges. And the African Union recently launched the SISTA 2024, which is the Science, Technology, and Innovation Strategy for Africa 2024. And it is looking at how science and technology can promote, encourage, or facilitate the socioeconomic development of Africa. And there are elements of this policy that elements of open science within that. And then when we look at the LibSense platform, you realize a number of countries in Africa are looking at establishing open science roadmaps, and then how they can ensure institutions and researchers and other stakeholders within their countries are adopting OS principles. So we have one currently going on in Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Ghana, Lesotho, Mozambique, Nigeria, Somalia, Tanzania, and Uganda. There is the likelihood that these countries are going to increase. And we are hoping that with communities like ARIN, where we have a lot of researchers coming from some of the countries that were not mentioned here, would also kind of facilitate discussions around establishing national OS roadmaps, and then contribute to how these policies and roadmaps are developed. So in Africa, a number of initiatives have started. When you check our website and the resources, with Africa Archive, which is a preprint platform that you can publish your preprints there. And we have the African Open Science Platform that is trying to establish the resources and infrastructure that we need to be able to practice open science, which is a huge issue. TCC Africa has been organizing a lot of regional dialogues on in terms of open science, and they've been engaging the high-level management and policymakers to ensure that they factor in open science into discussions. We have ARIN, which is a community that is trying to bring together a lot of researchers to bridge the gaps in open science. And then LibSense. LibSense is a community of research and education networks across Africa, and was established by WACRIN. And what LibSense has done so splendidly has been engaging a lot of policy makers and ensuring that discussions at the higher level are encouraged. When you check their website, they have a lot of resources that you can use in terms of policy documents for institutions, for countries. So if you are interested in leading efforts around your institution establishing an open science policy, you can look at the LipSense website and then download their document and then adapt it to suit your local community. And then we have the Africa PID Alliance, which is kind of trying to improve accessibility to African research using persistent identifiers, which is something that's not common. A lot of research from Africa is not really visible, but the Africa PID Alliance is trying to ensure that visibility of African research is increased. You can check their website. And then we have the African Open Science Hardware, which has been a wonderful community of makers that have been encouraging the principle of open science hardware. I think last year they organized these workshops on how to build the open flexure microscope, which is a simple microscope that can be used in the lab, but you can easily disassemble it and reassemble it. So these are some of the activities that are going on in Africa, and they are quite interesting. We hope that you will be able to join and take part in some of them. So now we are going to do a short poll on whether you are aware of some of the open science initiatives before we talked about them. So it's about whether you were aware before we talked about them. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to start the poll. So with this one, it's just a single choice. So you'll be required to just choose one of the options. So you just choose one of the options. And apologies for the speed. We are a bit hard pressed for time. The idea was to end at 1:30, but it's 1:20 now. So apologies for the speed. I hope that when we share the slides, you'll be able to go through them at your own pace. Yeah.
And the recordings as well are going to be available.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Okay, nice responses. Wow, I think, okay. Just waiting for everyone to answer. I think we have about 6 people who are still didn't answer. So if you could someone cannot see the poll. Okay.
Yeah, that is unfortunate, but it can happen sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, that's really sad.
Yeah, we were hoping for everyone's answer, right?
Does anyone else? Aman also cannot see it.
Yeah, I cannot see.
That's really, yeah.
Yes, please.
That's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
But maybe you can just write for us in the chat, those who cannot see, whether you have heard of other open science initiatives besides AREN or not. So this is basically what the poll is asking, whether you know other open science initiatives in Africa specifically. Okay.
So I think Lames, we can end the poll now, right?
Yes.
Because it looks like the rest kind of
Yes.
says it,
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. So I think almost half of you are not familiar. They've not heard of other open science initiative, which is really sad. And I think this highlights the importance of initiatives like AREN, is we're trying to let you know not just about AREN, but about the other open science players working in Africa. Yeah, and I think we have only one respondent who said
Yeah.
that they were very familiar, which is it's really sad, but we're sure that by the end of this, even by now, I think you already know many other open science players. So thank you for sharing your responses with us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Lames, should we proceed with the exercise, the breakout session, considering the time that we have on our hands right now? Or should we move straight forward into the Q&A session?
I think like everyone, would you be willing to stay for extra like 15 or 20 minutes? Or maybe we can just do a Q&A now, and for those who are interested to stay for the breakout rooms, then you're welcome to stay. But if you cannot stay longer, then now we could open the floor for questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes for questions. Okay, Musa, you can go ahead and mute yourself.
Very much for a nice and informative presentation. Is how to present open science using a local language, because there are different language in Ethiopia. Whether I'm from Ethiopia, from Asa, so would it be difficult to present open science findings using a local language? So I want you to reflect on that.
Yeah, hello, Musa. Thank you very much for the question. Unfortunately, my network was breaking up, so I couldn't really get the whole question, but it was related to presented open science concepts in local languages, right?
Yes.
If I got that correct.
Yes,
Since that has been
you're
going on
fine.
right now in the world of open science. Yeah, so that's one of the things that have been going on right now in the world of open science. I think a lot of activities have been going on about translating some of the resources into local languages. In 2021, in 2022, I worked with the Center for Open Science in translating help guides for their open science framework, which is an open platform globally for researchers to integrate open science into their research workflow. So we translated it into Swahili, and there are a lot of other translation projects translating them into French, into Portuguese, into Spanish. That is something that is going on globally. And I think the carpentries are also working on an initiative to translate a lot of their resources into other languages, right? I think I've forgotten the term that is it glossario, Lamis? I think that the name for the initiative is glossario, if I've gotten that right.
Yes.
Very good. So there are a lot of initiatives that are looking at that, but there are not a lot of them happening. So I think one of the things that Aaron would want to do going forward is to ensure that the materials we develop are translated. So the floor is always open for community members to do this for us. We are always happy to hear community members saying, I could volunteer to translate these slides, the slides that we use today, into, let's say, French, or let's say into Portuguese or into Swahili, so that it will be easier for me to present it in my community. That is totally good. And we encourage community members to also share their translation with us, so that we can also make it available to the global open science community, because it may be useful to someone in a different country. So it's something that is there. You can do it. So the floor is open.
Yeah, actually, like this is one of the major outputs that Aaron is hoping to achieve, is because in Africa we have so many different languages. So we would really love for our community, for you, our trainees, to sort of take the lead to start translating the materials into the native languages that you speak. So thank you for bringing this up.
Thank you for your response. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have another question in the chat, Emmanuel. I think it's for me. It's what are the differences between the principles of open science and research integrity and ethics? Well, I think if you look at the principles and values of open science, they're intertwined. Like you cannot set clear boundaries between them. But so if you do your work with integrity, this means automatically that you have work ethics. So they are sort of combined with each other, and there's not so many differences about them, but it's always about transparency and being honest about the methodology that you use, the data that you use, the results that you got, even though if they're not the results that you wanted to get. But then having integrity in conducting the research and having ethics while doing the research is very important for open science. So I hope that I answered your question. Okay, we have another question, Dr. Alwul. I hope I pronounced that well. Please go ahead. You can unmute.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Oluwole Banjo. I asked the question on the differences between open science and research integrity and ethics, because in my institution, just late last year, a group just started and is spreading on research integrity and ethics. So I'm trying to see, after this training, how I will come in and open the floor, open the community into open science, so that we don't end up having, it's like, it's a repetition, it's almost the same. No, you are not different. You are one. You know how it happens in an academic environment.
Yes.
So that is why I'm trying to ask, so that if I get to the authority, if I get to my community and I'm like, no, it's the same thing. So I can actually be able to tell them, okay, there are differences, or it's the same, but we are this or this, or I should be able to explain. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah,
Because
actually,
I'm already looking ahead.
Yeah, that's great thinking. And this is what, if you were with us in the orientation session, this is what we encourage all of the participants to do, to think ahead and think about how they're going to integrate this. And I think that since you already have a team working on ethics, I think you would work beautifully together, because open science is about ethical conduct of research. So I'm sure that you will be able to enrich this team very much. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ahmed suggested licensing the slides. Yes, we will be doing that. Probably by the end of the training. For now, the slides will be mainly available for the trainees. And then we also have to talk with the trainers about how they would like to license their slides. And for the rest of you who don't really know about licensing, this is something that is going to be brought up in the upcoming sessions. Like the different licensing is how you allow for your data to be reused, because you can publish everything openly, but then you can have control about how you want your content to be reused. So thank you for that. Again, about the speed, we're really sorry. All of us are non-native, by the way, I think, and non-native English speakers. And we were just trying to be mindful of the time of everyone. So we're really sorry about that. Yeah. So are there any more questions? We'd really like for you to unmute and speak. Please, like, all of us are non-native speakers. All of us have accents while speaking English. So please, we encourage you to unmute and talk and discuss, because this is a really safe environment. You're not going to be judged by any way. So please, we encourage you to be more open, to opening your mics and discussing in the future. So is there any more question? Okay, I think
Can I leave now? Because I have another commitment.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
definitely, yeah. So we're
Thank
really
you.
sorry to extend this. So if you have other commitments, you're free to leave. But we have one more, we're hoping to do an exercise about breakout rooms, about the future of open science. So if you have the time to stay, then we would really like for you to join us. But if you have commitments, you're free to leave. Okay. Joseph is asking that we are talking about open science, but about the consequences of plagiarism. Yeah, I think
Please?
plagiarism. Yes.
Yes, I was talking about open science. So we are talking about open science, but what are the consequences of plagiarism? Because when we access to the documents freely, we must know how to avoid plagiarism, because we do not mention this in the presentation. I would like to know what would be the consequences of plagiarism according to open science.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think actually it's really great that you brought this up because I think many people might confuse the concept of open science and plagiarism. Plagiarism is about reusing information and copying and pasting them without acknowledging the source of this information. But this is not open science, actually acknowledges, you have to acknowledge the source of information, but then you have the free ability to reuse and redistribute the information. So I think they are a bit of two separate concepts. And plagiarism is usually seen in papers, in theses, in written scientific material. But open science is much more broader than that. So if for example, I say that my data is open, it will be open under a certain license, which you will learn about in the future, in the coming session. And then this license, for example, in this license, I can say, okay, I want people to use this data in whatever way they want, and they don't even need to acknowledge me. I'm happy with that. But then someone else might make their data open, but then say, I would like for someone to ask me first before using the data.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And they have to acknowledge me if they produce publication or so on. So actually you have control. You, the person who have deposit, for example, the open data, you have control by different licenses. And if someone broke this license, you can sue them. So, so open science is actually, people think that it's sort of a mess, like everything, everyone can use everything, but no, it's actually organized and it's governed by certain licenses. So I hope I answered your question.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're
It is
welcome.
okay.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I think some people had to leave. So we have about 20 people. So are you guys happy to stay and contribute in the exercise?
Yes. Yes, we are. Yes,
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much for giving us more of your time. So I think, Emmanuel, I would share my screen to explain the exercise. Okay. So what we are hoping to do in this session is talk about the future of open science in Africa. We talked about the landscape, we talked about the barriers, the benefits, everything. So since you are Africans and you are working in the scientific community, we'd like to discuss with you how you think the future of open science in Africa would potentially be. So we will divide you into breakout rooms, and we would like for you to discuss about envisioning the future landscape of open science in Africa, discussing about what key steps are needed to be taken to realize this vision, and how can international partners contribute. So I think now we could break you into, I think we'll need four breakout rooms, right, Emmanuel? into groups of 5. And one other thing is that we have a document, a Google Doc, that we will share with you so that you can write as you're discussing. One of the group could volunteer to write up sort of the points that were discussed in this group, and then after the end of the breakout rooms, we would like to discuss all of these ideas together. So I will share with you in the link the breakout rooms, the Google Doc for the breakout rooms. I'll share it in the chat. Here it is. So you will see that there is group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, group 5, and then you see which group you are in the breakout room, and you write the comments within the limits of this of your group. So I think now we could do the breakout rooms, Manuel.
Yeah, so I'm creating the breakout rooms now. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So we have 5 breakout rooms. So you can join now. You can leave the main room and go to your breakout rooms and get going with the discussion. Oh, we have rooms that have only 2, room 3. Emmanuel, maybe you can put some of the people who are not assigned in it.
No, I think the others were not yet to join. So
okay.
Yeah, they've joined. Some, 2, 3.
So I think now you should have in your screen a prompt that takes you to your breakout room. If you could just click join, and then you'll be transported to the breakout room. I think you can pause the recording, Emmanuel.
Yeah.
Just in the three of us.
Yes, we did, ma.
That's really nice, and thank you for staying over time. That's really great of you. Okay, so I think now we have everyone back, right?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, so what we would like to do is just take the next 10 minutes and to discuss what each group said. So if like one person from each group could volunteer to walk us through what they discussed, that would be great. So we'll start with group 1. If any one of the group could just unmute and let us know what they discussed. Or, okay, if group 1 is not ready, then maybe we could move to group 2. If any one of you could unmute and walk us through what you guys discussed, that would be great.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, we can hear
you.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in my group we discussed around creating awareness on open science, How can we create awareness to our local communities after getting trained in this hour, and how can we create a ripple effect on our local community on subject matter of open science? And also we discussed around improving infrastructure, especially coming to the aspect of internet access. How can we make people to participate in open science platform and not being restricted to this internet asset and some other open infrastructures as well. We also discuss on community buildings in the area of open science, maybe after going to our local community, training them on what open science is all about. We should tend to build a community around what we are doing in open science platform. And on the aspect of international partnership as well, we discuss around collaborating with international community, working on open science projects who are more experienced on this area, and also securing funding, especially. That's what we basically discuss in our group.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing. And I think this is exactly what Aren is hoping for the future. So I thank you. Hit all the goals that Aren is trying to do. So thank you very much. Yeah, and we sure hope that we could build communities of practice of open science in Africa. Thank you very much, Daniel. Now we can move to group 3. If any one of you could unmute and share with us what they discussed.
Yeah, I will share. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, if you could just speak up a bit, Ahmed.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, we've discussed a lot of things that mainly focused on the importance of raising awareness and conducting training programs to realize the vision, and also creating and improving the necessary infrastructure that helps open science practices and reproducible research practices, and also having, and not only having, but also enforcing the policies that will guide open research practices. And regarding how can international partnerships contribute, we've mainly discussed about the importance of collaboration and knowledge exchange. Yeah, I think these were the key points that we've mentioned in the breakout room.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ahmed. Again, it's lovely to hear that we're all thinking around the same ideas. And this is what we're hoping to accomplish from this training, is to have a group of people who have the same mindset and the same ideas about how to go about in open science in Africa. So yeah, your points are spot on. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Now we have group 4, I think, right? We're in group 4 or
okay,
3.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
All right. On the steps that we have managed to find out, we say we need to increase awareness on open science among the community so that people will be able to embrace it. So if they know something, in most cases, they don't resist, especially if we hammer on the benefits of open science. And then there's need for investment in infrastructure, because if you look at it, in some cases, some institutions, they want to take part in open science activities, but due to the lack of infrastructure that enables them to accomplish it, they're not able to do so. And then the issue of capacity building, ensuring that those who are the stakeholders that are part of the open science movement are aware of what they're supposed to do, the roles and responsibilities of researchers, of librarians, and other stakeholders within the open science movement. There's need to build capacity. And then the issue of policy formulation, because if you look at it, in some cases, when people are not mandated to do something, they don't do it. But if we craft open science policies, starting from the institutions to the nation, the region, will be able to ensure that the open science movement will move in the right direction where we want it to go within the African community. And then the issue of funding support, because in most cases, most institutions, they lack funds to do the open science activities. And then in terms of how the institutional partnerships can contribute, we said that we need to give access to capacity building for African researchers. These institutions, these international partnerships, most of them, they are well advanced in terms of the open science movement. So we need to learn from them, and then them assisting us as African researchers and other African communities, so that we'll be able to carry the open science movement forward. And then we need to give researchers access to these open science resources that are available so that they make use of them. And then the international partnerships will also help in terms of long-term sustainability, such as giving financial support through grant proposals or donor funding, and having institutional partnerships whereby they'll be assisting the institutions to carry forward the open science movement. And then the issue of knowledge sharing. We know that in most cases, the international community, they've got the expertise, they know the best practices of how to carry forward the open science movement. So we can ride on them so that they can offer trainings, training programs, offer workshops, and other collaborative projects that can assist us as African researchers. Thank you.
Wow, Jocelyn, this was a beautiful discussion, and every point is important as the other point. And I think one thing that I would like for you to know is that, and as Africans, we're not that far behind. I don't want you to think that, oh, we like people in the global north, they're way ahead of us. But the open science movement is fairly new. And to be honest, I feel like Africa, because I think African researchers and academics and professionals are the ones who have been struggling the most about the barriers, the financial barriers, the accessibility. So I feel actually with the discussion of various communities, I feel that we are in Africa, actually, we are catching up very fast. So this is one thing that I would like for all of you to know, that you're not far behind. We're not far behind. We're catching up beautifully. In some points, we're even going ahead of some of the global north institutions. So Jocelyn, thank you very much for sharing with us what you discussed. And these are beautiful points. And we're really amazed that even though this is just the beginning and you're already thinking about all of these things. So this makes me really happy and excited to see how this training program goes and the ideas that would come from it. I think now we have one more group. It's the group 5, right? Yeah, Clara, you can go ahead and speak.
Okay, thank you so much. Please, my group is group 1, and I was asked to write down things, but I had challenge joining up the main group. I wouldn't know whether somebody has spoken for our group.
No,
Group 1.
no, they haven't. So please go ahead.
Okay, I'll start by apologizing that the link that was shared, we couldn't access it, but I took a snapshot of the question before. So I think what I'm going to say now will still be in line with what our questions are.
No worries. Go ahead. No worries.
Okay, the points we noted down are these. 1, there's need for more training for researchers. That's a capacity building, more training for researchers so that they will be able to know what they are supposed to do in order to enhance open science. Also, the second point is including open science in academic policies will also go a long way in ensuring that vision is realized. And the third point is setting up infrastructures that will enhance open science. That will also help. And lastly, here we have include in curriculum of universities, especially PG studies, including open science in PG curriculum for universities, will also go a long way in helping. So these are the few points we're able to note before our time elapsed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Clara.
Okay.
Someone wants to speak again, or? But yeah, I think the points that you said are exactly spot on. Again, I think providing infrastructure and training are the points I think that have been mentioned by all groups. So thank you very much for sharing. I just want to make sure that we didn't miss any other group. Did the final group speak? Group 5?
No, No, they haven't spoken yet.
Okay, so if anyone from group 5 could just speak, unmute and speak.
Okay, I will take the floor to present what we have done in group 5.
Yeah.
So for the first point, we have said that making national, local based institution. The second is making sufficient with financial capacity. And the third one is technological availability. And the last is policy assessments. For how can international partnership contribute? We have the first through a fellowship and internship, academic exchange, financial support, technological assistance, and inclusion in the curricula. The last one is project intervention, collaboration. That is what we retain in the group 5.
Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you for sharing. And again, it's lovely to see that all groups are thinking around the same outlines. And this is exactly what we need. We need to all sort of agree on the vision that we have of how open science could prevail in Africa. So thank you very much, Joseph. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think now all groups have spoken, and I think we can clearly see that we've all agreed mainly about training and infrastructure and policies. I think this is what we can get out of this discussion. I think that these 3 points are maybe the major points that we need to work in the future. And these are what we hope that we could all be well equipped to do after the end of this training program. I don't know, Emmanuel, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, so what I would want to say is that all the information that we've provided are most of the times generalized. So it would be good to kind of assess it in terms of how things are within your community or institution, so you can know which way to best kind of go about your work as an advocate for open science. So it's something that we are hoping the community would do, and then come up with initiatives and projects around various principles and policies and etc. And then the community will kind of join and support. So we are really looking forward to that, and then how things are going to progress from here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. And we really thank you very much. Like, we've taken so much of your day, but we're really happy to talk to you, interact with you, and we're really grateful that you agreed to stay well after the agreed training time. So if no one else have a question, I think we could say goodbye. And it was really lovely having you. And this session has given me much joy and excitement about the sessions that are yet to come.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you again on our next training.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Au
Thank you,
revoir.
everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.